Okay, somebody gave me a box fan a couple years ago and it was rotten, so I took all the rotten parts off and threw them away and kept the mechanical parts. Been up in the attic, and I kept this template thinking I might need it, and it's been screwed to the wall. This is going to go in the pole barn at the country, so it's going to get wet when it rains probably. So these boxes rot all the time. I've done several of these. So in order to maximize its life, I'm going to use Cypress for the bottom and the top. I got some boards glued up. And this is some Home Depot CDX, but it does have exterior glue, so this is going to be the two sides. That's no big deal. What's confusing me is this template is not square. It's 2 inches, 2¼ inches bigger this ways than this ways. And this dimension and this dimension are not the same. And I can't quite figure out why it's like that. The distance between, well, yeah, it's hard to measure. It has 3 supports, and the distance between that flange and the center of the shaft is not the same as the distance between this flange and the center of the shaft, and obviously this is centered, so I'm not sure what's going on. So that's a perplexing issue. And the second perplexing issue is I don't know what I did with the motor. I know it came with a motor and a little bracket, and I can't find it. I think it might be at the foundry, which is going to be a problem because I have like 8 motors over there at the foundry, and they don't all work, and they go different directions, and whew, I got to go figure out which one it is. Hopefully it's over there because I don't see it around here. I don't know what in the world I did with it. But it's been a couple of years, so there's no memory in my head. All right, well, I'm kind of stuck until this glue dries, which it's about a bajillion degrees today, so it shouldn't take but an hour. We'll move forward on the build. My glue up for the bottom came out to be 13 inches, so 13 a little bit. So we're just gonna make the box 13 inches. So I'm gonna cut this one a little narrower down to 13, run them both through the thickness planer just to kind of clean them up a little bit, and start cutting joints. Phone says it's 100 degrees, so I got the fan blowing hot air on me to make me feel better. So I made a box, wooden top, wooden bottom, plywood sides. I let the sides overlap the bottom to try to prevent some rainwater from getting in there and rotting it prematurely. And if I put a straight edge across here, I've got 2.5 inches of play. I think 1 inch is enough to keep the screen from hitting the fan, and that'll give me 1.5 inches in the back for the belt and all that mess. And if 1 inch isn't enough, I can always just make these fatter, you know, put a little strip on here. But this was my glue up. This was as wide as I could make it with the bottom glue up, and this was as high as I could make it with the piece of plywood I wanted to use. So I'm going to raise this fan and put in my little blocks and get it fastened. And it does hang from the top. I remember that being kind of weird, that this strut was not on the bottom, it was on the top. Now, you know, it makes sense because it's just flat steel. It's not really a support member, it's a hanging member. And that clears up the whole bottom for me to put the motor anywhere I want. So that's kind of nice. So I'm gonna block it up and get it fastened. Okay, my 3 mounting blocks are in and glued and nailed, one on each side and one on the bottom of the top. I'm gonna put the fan in and go ahead and screw it into place. It'll probably have to come out a couple more times, but I need something to be rigid so I can start looking at this circle. Well, the fan blades are secure. The motor is clamped. Oh, I did find the motor, by the way. It was behind something on a shelf. Any reason why I shouldn't plug it in? I don't think so. Oh, it's quiet. Oh, and it blows. Can you feel it? It's going to be better when I get that round thing. I just don't know where to put it. I don't have a piece of plywood that I want to donate to make this, I don't know what you call this thing, but I do have some 1x, so I'm going to go box it with 1x and then put some 1x in the corners. And I think that'll work. Okay, I don't know what this part's called, but before the end of the video, I'll find out. But anyway, I got the first part of the frame fit, clamped into place. It's going to get cut around here for blade clearance, but the corners won't be cut, so I'm going to use screws to put this and this and this, pocket screws to put this frame together, put it back into place. We'll have to add a triangle, so we'll have enough material here. I won't be able to use pocket screws on that. I'll probably use biscuits on that. So let's take this apart and screw it together. So along with those 1x6s I've been messing with, this 1x8 was in the same trash pile. And if I cut a triangle out of it, it will be big enough to finish the template. Put that if I put that right there, I'll be able to cut my whole curve. That's all I need is 4 of those. Easy smeezy. Could probably even use pocket screws, but I think I'll use the biscuit joiner. So I bought this Skill brand biscuit joiner many years ago when the kids were little and money was tight. So every time I bought a tool, it was kind of a big deal. And it's terrible. It vibrates so much. It's very hard to keep it where you want to keep it. So I don't use it very often, but it's going to work for this. So the theory behind these biscuits is they're crushed. So when you put some glue, white glue, water-based glue on them, they expand. So when you get them in there and get some glue on them, you don't have a whole lot of time to mess with because they swell up and get tight pretty quick. And I got some clamps on them, but I'm gonna be able to let those clamps go in 20 minutes. I'll be able to go try to scribe a circle on this thing. So I used a pencil and the blade to make a rough circle. It's very rough because I can't keep the pencil 90 degrees to the wood all the time like I should. And I tried clamping little blocks of wood on here, but the blade is curved and I just couldn't do it. So I got a rough circle. I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna lay that original circle on top of it, kind of refine it a little bit. And then we'll cut it with the jigsaw and sand both sides of this thing. And think about, I'm not sure where it goes. I'm assuming it should go right where the tip of the blade is. That's going to conflict with the motor, but I guess we'll deal with that when we deal with that. Okay, so that worked good. This is my squiggly line, and this was more or less exactly the outside of the blades. And this is a good circle. I'm assuming this is a good circle. This is the circle that came with the fan when it was originally made. So I'm going to scribe that and cut it with the jigsaw. We're going to do some sanding. Do all that off camera. That's pretty boring. Cut the circle with my jigsaw, put the belt sander on it, sanded all that old interior paint off. It was latex, this is not old wood. And put the router bit and rounded over both edges. Thought that would be a good thing. And I got it kind of centered on the blades. I don't know exactly where to put it. Now my problem is that the motor and the belt don't line up. I put a straight edge on this pulley. The motor needs to go that way, about 1.5 inches. And I don't think I can cut a hole in this. I don't know, maybe I need a different motor. This one works so well though. I wonder if I can pull this pulley out some. Maybe I can pull this pulley out a little bit. Let's see. I need a straight edge. So I pulled this pulley out as far as I dared. And I shoved this pulley in as far as I could. And it's not in line. The belt's not in line, but it's pretty close. And it's running like perfectly. Is it quiet? It's blowing buckets of air. Can you feel it? It feels awesome. So I think I just may leave it not in line. I don't think it's that big a deal. It's a low horsepower kind of deal. Yeah, so this is doing good. This is doing good. Now that shaft sticks out past here, so I'm gonna have to bring this out a little bit. No big deal. All right, the wooden part of the fan box is finished, I think. I've got plywood edges covered with some red wood, a hole cut for the receptacle switch. I've got this flange pulled out 3/4 of an inch to clear the end of the electric motor, and I've got all the way around on both sides something to put the screen on. So I'm gonna start sanding. Get this thing painted up well. So sanded, caulked, primed with kilts, and latex house paint inside and out. The color combination is called, what do I have in the cabinet? And a sanded and clean, and I cleaned these blades. They were real, they're aluminum, but they had a lot of roughness on them, and I think this has got to make them quieter, right? If they're smooth and clean. So I got this side spray painted. I'll have to flip it over and paint the other side, and I may or may not put a finish paint. That's just primer, not sure. All right, the motor is sitting where I think the motor is going to sit, and I got the belt pulled. It's not real tight, but it doesn't have to be. And I was able to get a pencil in there and mark the slots. So I'm going to drill 4 holes and put 4 bolts to the back side of the slot, and that will allow me to push the motor and tighten it up if I ever need to. But these things, they run so slow and so easy. There's not a lot of power going through these belts, so I think we're going to be good. So I'm going to put these wheels on the fan because it's going to be in gravel, so it's going to be hard to move. And I'm going to use the worst thing in the world for an axle, which is threaded rod, because I don't anticipate the thing like mowing the grass. You know, it's just going to move from one end of the barn to the other, and they should last a long time. When they wear out, I'll do something else. But I'm going to bolt this to the bottom. I have to put some matching legs on the other end to make it sit level. Yeah, so let's flip this over and get started. So I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. I put 3 divots in the threads with a punch and a hammer, and I cut this nut in half. So when I back it up and put it flush with the wood, like this one, and put a washer on it, keep this wheel from hitting the wood, and it won't move because it's got it. And it shouldn't back itself out because I got to turn it pretty hard with the wrench to overcome the damage I've done on the threads, which was the purpose. So these are the legs for the front, or the stand, or whatever you want to call it. Make it level with the wheels, and they go right here. So I put it up there, and I marked it with a pencil, and I drilled holes. So now from the other side, I'm gonna screw this to this, and the wheels are perfect. I have a lock nut, and I marked it, and I cut it and ground it after the fact. Got a washer on both sides, and they should last a long time. They're kind of sun rotten. They're kind of rotten, but they're gonna be in the barn. I don't think it's gonna be moved around much. If they break, I can fix them. The last piece of the puzzle is to get this wire unrolled and flattened out. I ordered this from Home Depot, delivered it to my house. But yeah, we need to unroll it and flatten it out and put one piece on each side to keep little fingers out of the fan. And we're gonna call it done. So I cut the wire to length, and I cut it 1 inch longer than I needed it, and these little squares are 1/2 inch. So I'm folding the end over and then folding it again over. And the reason I'm doing this is because 1, it's super weak on the ends where you cut it, and 2, where you cut it, those little wires are razor sharp and they'll rip your shirt or rip your skin. So I'm folding it over to try to hide the cut wires, and the top and the bottom, it's the right width, so I didn't cut it, so it's the factory edge, so it's not so bad, and I don't have room to fold it over anyway. But it's mostly the corners, so that when you walk by it, it can't grab you. So the first corner is the hardest. You're holding the screen, and the screen doesn't want to lay flat, and you're holding the drill, and you're holding the screws, and my hands shake, so it's kind of challenging to get that first screw in there. The second screw is much easier, and after that they're cake. But in this case, the screen was crooked, or I don't know what the term. It wasn't the corners were not right angles, even though I cut with the little lines. So I don't know whether the screen got bashed in shipment or what, but pretty frustrating. I put it up and took it down and put it back up, and I ended up trying to pry the screen over with some tie wire and a screwdriver, and it just it's not nice, it's not good, but I I only have a 10-foot roll, so I don't have enough to do it over again. But anyway, it's pretty frustrating. I don't buy new stuff very often, and then when I buy new stuff, it doesn't work right. It's yeah, it's frustrating. So it's not much of a video. You can't see what I'm doing, but I've tied some little loops with just tie wire, annealed black wire, and that gives me something to stick the screwdriver in and pry on. And I'm prying as hard as I can without the 2 loops of wire tearing through. And I'm just barely getting a screw on the edge of the redwood, and it's wonky, and I'm not happy, but I'm moving forward. All right, side 1 screen, and it's a little disappointing because the screen's out of whack. It's not square. I pried and pried and pried, and I got it close, and it's just a fan for a barn, but I was hoping to make it look a little better than that. So on the other side, I didn't make this hem on this side yet. I can kind of pull this tight, but then the top comes down, or I can pull the top up, but then I get a buckle over here. So yeah, I'm gonna do something. It's not gonna be pretty, unfortunately, or not as pretty as it should be, but it'll keep kids' fingers out. So actually the second side pulled up pretty square. I wish the first side would have done as well, and I'm out of wire, so I can't do the first side again. But what I have now is I folded it over in place, and I got all these Sharpies. So I'm gonna cut this vertical off. I got all these Sharpies, so I'm gonna cut this vertical off, which will leave long Sharpies, and I can bend those in. I'll have to do them one at a time, but I'll bend them in, and then there'll be no shirt grabbers, because I got this side folded twice. Top and bottom is not folded, but that's a factory edge. They're not so bad. So I'm gonna do a lot of snipping and a lot of bending, and I think that might do it. Okay, fan is done. I trimmed off this piece of wire, and I folded one by one every one of those little wires over to make it less catchy on things, because those things are super sharp. So that's it. So we're gonna bring it to the country, deliver it to the barn where it's gonna live. It's not really an outdoor fan, but it's pretty waterproof, pretty weather resistant. This one, you've seen this one in all my videos. This is more of an outdoor fan. It doesn't have a bottom, it's just got wire down there so water can drain through. The box is just cypress siding, and the top is some teak wood from an old boat. And this is the second box I've made for this fan. The first one rotted away. It lasted about 10 years, but I just finished this one, I guess, less than a year ago. It's holding up pretty good. So I think this one's gonna last a long, long time, because I don't think how long we'll keep it in the rain. It just may get some water blown on it during a windy rain. And I use all my fans like a workbench, so I'll put a receptacle here by the switch. It's just super convenient. And I put, this was a bathroom safety grab rail kind of thing, stainless steel. I had a bunch of them, and I cut it shorter for the handle on this end. So probably would be nice to have a hook to hang the cord. The cord's pretty long. But that won't be in this video because I'm wrapping it up. So thanks for watching. Pleasant breeze to everybody.